So hello again, because there are some more people in the room, which is wonderful. Hello, everybody. And we are going to start our second session, second presentation in this session about learners' environment and strategies. And we are moving back from Helsinki to Brno, because we have two dear colleagues from Masaryk University. And it's Linda Doleží who works at this language center. She holds a PhD maybe she's going to tell us later. And she does her research in methodology. She teaches Czech for foreigners. And then we have her colleague Marek Bartoň, who works as a postdoc at Czech. And his research is not, actually Linda has a PhD in linguistics, which is actually my field of study, but I just couldn't think of that, sorry. And Mark has a bit of a different field, neurophysiology, but these fields are nicely combined in their presentation, so I'm sure they will tell us more about it. So the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much, Petro. Today we'll speak, both of us, so we'll take turns and try to manage this funny situation. Before I start speaking, I would like to put this presentation into a bigger context, let's say, so that you understand what we are doing. We are concerned with a case study today. Case studies do not tell us much, but still we believe these are the few small steps that we are taking into much bigger, let's say, research. I started to study language acquisition some time ago, long time ago, right? And I did my PhD in language acquisition. And then I started to get involved in state integration program. And I started to work with a special group of people, asylum holders and international protection holders and their children. And I started to observe that sometimes language acquisition somehow didn't work. And I wanted to know why, what's going on? Why don't the children acquire Czech as a second or foreign language easily? What's going on? And this has sort of sparkled my interest in let's say, language maintenance and language attrition, right? So I moved from acquisition to attrition. And then I moved even further, and I realized that my methodology is not enough and I needed help. And I was very lucky to find my colleagues in CETEC, because they helped me to have a look at the invisible components of our minds, yeah? Things that I cannot touch as a psycholinguist or as a teacher, things that I cannot see or ask about. With their methodology, I can at least, or we think we can get an insight, and this is what we will talk about in our today's presentation. Before I start, I would like to ask you two questions. The first one is whether everybody is familiar with fMRI or with neuroimaging studies, whether you know how they work. If yes, please could you put your hand up? Kind of, thank you. This is just to map and to see how to approach this. And my second question is whether you think that the rule use it or lose it when speaking about second or foreign languages works. Because I've been telling this to my students for ages, right? Use it or lose it, use it or lose it. So what do you think? So who believes that this rule works? Please hand up. Okay, so that's, thank you very much. That's the mapping, and now I'll proceed to our presentation. So the name is Context of Learning as a Potential Factor in Successful Language Maintenance Case Study. And what is our research motivation? I've already mentioned some of the points, so I'll just summarize. So how do we successfully learn, use, and maintain a language? What are the factors in play? How can we observe them? Can we actually look beyond the observable factors? Does use it or lose it rule hold water? Does it work? and how to successfully teach so that our students successfully learn, use, and maintain their language, because I believe learning a language is a kind of investment, right? We want to learn it usually so that we keep it and use it. We invest some energy, so this is what we would like to understand more. And in this case study, we decided to use neuroimaging techniques because we believe that these kind of studies provide good insight about how language representation differs when we manage languages of different strength or that were acquired at different times or different ways. So this is kind of approach that we are adopting. And I would like to ask Marek now to give you some information about the experiment itself. Marko. Do you want this mic or this?
This is okay. Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I will talk about the neuroimaging part of our experiment. And since you are not experts in this field, I will explain the basics. We used the fMRI imaging modality. We did fMRI scanning, and this is the abbreviation for the functional magnetic resonance imaging. You probably, all of you know what is magnetic resonance, and it's used in hospitals for medical diagnostics. But this is structural imaging. It is just imaging of the body parts, but we are using functional MRI, and it means we are measuring functions of the central nervous system, mostly functions of the brain. So the principle is that we are repeatedly scan the brain with the sequences that are sensitive to the oxygenation. So we have the time evolution of the oxygenation of the brain, and these fluctuations in oxygenation correlates with the neural activity. Then we process this data with using various statistical methods, and we decide which parts of the brain were active. So it is method for detection of neural activity via changes in oxygenation and time. We have pretty nice spatial resolution in the order of millimeters. Here in this study, we used the resolution of 3 millimeters. We had small cubes, whole brain coverage. These volume elements are called voxels. Maybe ukazovátko, vidíš? Teď můžu ukazovat, že to asi nebude vidět. Jo, bude. Okay. So we have such a beautiful spatial resolution, and we are measuring activity of brain in all of these tens of thousands voxels in the whole brain. In our experiment, we are eliciting the neural activity by our experimental conditions. It is passive listening of spoken narrative in different languages. Here we are focusing only on Arabic. And we also have some silence periods as a reference null baseline. And we are comparing the Arabic activation to the baseline. These conditions are presented auditorily in 20-second continuous blocks in pseudo-randomized order, and every block is repeated 10 times. So the whole time of scanning was about 18 minutes.
So this is how the experiment works, and I will explain why Arabic, why we decided to work with this language. We had two subjects that we were focusing on. Both subjects have got Czech as their mother tongue, L1. They have Arabic as their L2. They acquired it in a mixed context. What I mean by mixed context is kind of a mix of a naturalistic context with a little bit of instructional, but like minimally. So it's more naturalistic context. So we mentioned many times, by absorbing, let's say, the language through living it, let's say. With subject 1, this L2 Arabic was acquired in adulthood. We could call this process as conscious, and motivated, highly motivated. Yeah, the motivation was survival in the majority society, keeping a family, and so on. Estimated formal level at that time of L2 Arabic was minimum A2. Estimated current level of L2 Arabic is A2. It's not forgotten, the language, even though it was last used in 1985. So, long time ago, more than 35 years ago. Yeah. With subject 2, the situation is similar, only that it was acquired, L2 Arabic in childhood and preschool age. And the question is how conscious this acquisition was and how motivated. So there certainly is a difference in this. Estimated formal level could be minimum A2 again, and estimated current level is 0. The language was forgotten. Okay, it's non-existent. There is no access to it. And if you're interested, we have a poster. We analyzed this special part of the data in elsewhere. So for those of you interested, we are very happy to give you more information about it. And the length of acquisition period was 3 years approximately, and the end of acquisition and usage period was 1985. Okay, so these are the two subjects. If we compare their linguistic trajectories in Aneta Pavlenko's terms, what is similar or identical is the context of learning, the similar type of input and type of contact, length of residence, and length of non-using the L2 Arabic. Okay, this is, for me, it was super. I loved this. 3 factors that were the same or similar. However, we have also differences, and that's age of acquisition, age during the experiment, and degree of language loss. With S2, there is no language. Seems to be no language. I have to be very careful about what I'm saying. And I would like to ask Marek again to give you more detailed information about the method and the results.
Yes, so after the scanning, we downloaded the data, performed some standard preprocessing, these are different corrections, and then estimated the activation strength in every brain voxel for each condition. And as I said, we focused just on the Arabic versus silent baseline. So we had some auditory perception, some phonological decoding, and possibly some semantic processing. So it's just the passive listening and automatic processing in the brain. And we look at the activity in these 3 large-scale brain networks. First is the language network. We can see that these regions occupies frontal and temporal lobe. You probably know this if you are doing some research concerning the linguistic field. So we looked at the signal level in the language network. We expect that during this stimulation, passive listening, the signal in the language network will go up as the brain process the language, the linguistic stimuli. This activity in the language network is every time accompanied by activity of the MDS, multi-domain system, which support functions, domain general functions like attention, working memory, cognitive control. So we also expect that activity will go up in this system during the active condition. Lastly, we looked at the activity in the default mode network. You can see it on this 3rd picture. It also occupies frontal-parietal regions, but lower, more inferior than MDS. And this network is deactivated by the tasks that needs externally oriented attention. What is interesting in the concern of language with default mode network is that even when it deactivates during linguistic stimuli, it partially activates when there is semantic content. So if we would have two tasks, for example, one phonological and second semantic, and these 2 tasks will be comparable in terms of difficulty. Both conditions or both tasks will deactivate default mode network, but the semantic task less, because there will be some internal associations concerning the semantic content. So we looked at the activation in these three networks. Yeah, and here are the results. There are two subjects, first with unforgotten Arabic, second with forgotten Arabic, and we can see that we saw the activations in task positive networks and the activation in a default mode network in both subjects. However, the activation was stronger in the forgotten, and the deactivation of the default mode network was also stronger the deactivation of default mode network. The interpretation is following. The language processing was more effortful in a subject who forgotten Arabic because it wasn't automatic. So we can measure it, we can see that the activation may be quantified and look at these activation shifts. However, as Linda said, these two subjects differed in the age, so it may also influence the results a little bit, especially in MDS. But we can say that even with such a simple experiment, we can look at the brain activation, quantifying them, and if we would recruit a larger cohort, we can look even to finer details and or correlate the activity with some behavioral measure, language proficiency, because we will have more statistical power and we can do correlation across the subjects. Okay, this is... Yeah.
Okay. I know it might be maybe difficult to get all the results. We would need maybe more time to process, but still we believe that there is a great potential in fMRI studies to give us information that is otherwise not available, let's say. But there are a few problems that I will just briefly mention. Comparing subjects, it's a kind of control challenge because it's difficult to measure proficiency and the target language, let's say. If you measure something that was 30 years ago, and even now, measuring proficiency is a problem sometimes in itself. Age and cognitive maturity, type and amount of input and contact, and context of learning. This is all that is difficult really to compare properly, right? Stating something exactly, yeah? What is also a problem is fMRI itself and the interpretation of the data. Yeah, it's multi-everything. Yeah, languages, factors, combinations, possibilities. So I believe we need to approach highly individual attitude to research and really focus on many details. Yeah, there's a high variability. When I started cooperating with my colleagues from CETEC, they were just telling me, we need more people, we need more people. We can't say anything based on this small sort of, let's say, case study. So I have to, unfortunately, agree with that. Why focusing on special cases like this? Why would we want to do that? And for example, have a look at why context might matter. As is clear, context does probably matter because the language, at least in one of the speakers, survived for a very long time without being used, right? And I believe it's because the language was acquired or learned through living, through real life situations, and through embodiment. And I believe, and it's really just my belief, unfortunately, hopefully later it will be something more than a belief, that this is the way how to effectively learn and maintain the language, to live it, to embody it in naturalistic context, if possible, or kind of combination. Yeah. So this is something that could be useful for us as teachers, if these are our goals. Here is some bibliography that we used, and we would like to thank you. But before we thank you really, we would like to show you this. Can you read it? Yes? Because I can't kind of read it. This is a poster for a research that we would like to carry out to get more people involved, to stop being involved with case studies only. And if you fulfill our criteria, please get in touch with us, or if you know about someone. We would like to have a look at how forgotten languages work, whether and how they work in our minds. So this is our future goal, and we would be very happy to gain more volunteers and people who would like to join us in the research. So that's all from us now, and we'll be looking forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you to both speakers, and of course you can have questions. We have a microphone, so we will happily lend it to you. So anybody would like to ask about anything? Maybe I can start and then you can go on. I was wondering whether you concentrate on speakers who, like you mentioned Arabic, for example, who grew up with this language, or are you going to examine or analyze also speakers who learned the language in a classroom setting? Or is it more about the L2 experience?
Well, technically it's possible.
You probably need to use the mic for the virtual audience.
Technically it's possible to scan anyone. Depends on your hypothesis, and you can test it by fMRI. But here in this study, I think the hypothesis is focused on the language attrition, right?
Actually, Petro, this is a very good question. Yeah, I was thinking about who and whether anyone is actually going to come and join us in this research, because the criteria are pretty sort of stiff. Yeah. In fact, it would be nice to have a few people who learned in instructed context and a few people who learned in naturalistic, so that we can compare. Yeah. So at this point, we are welcoming, let's say, both settings as to context. Yeah. And we might observe exactly this, the effect of the context on the maintenance and non-attrition, let's say, because according to my hypothesis, the instructional will not have such an effect on language maintenance, at least, for example, in preschool age, maybe at any age, I don't know. These are very strong statements, but I would welcome both so that I could compare, actually. Yeah, please.
Just a moment, please. You have to press it, yes.
I just wanted to ask whether time measures as well, whether it depends on how many years a person actually uses the language or something like that. I don't know, could happen, because I actually was bilingual, and I developed my language as well. And there is a difference, and I don't know whether time measures. That's what I'm.
So if I
Please repeat the question because I'm not turning the microphone back.
If I understand well, your question is whether the time matters, the time concerning non-using the language? Of course. And what we need to do for our research is to find a homogeneous group. So it would be great if we found people who haven't used the language for 45 years or something like that, right? So it might matter. Definitely, it's one of the variables that we need to control. So it might, but I don't know. I don't know yet. Thank you.
Maybe it might be interesting to observe different levels of attrition, neural correlates of these different levels.
Also, yes. We hope to find some people, so if you knew about someone, please let them know that we would like to carry out this research so that we can find out more and understand the principles of how multilingual mind works. better and use it in our teaching. Yeah.
You should check also the virtual chat. I think it's in here. The mouse doesn't work, so because it should be here. Yes. Yes. Yeah, so there are some questions. Alina, if you would like to read it, yes, it's in here from Claudia R.
Marco, would you like to see that? Thank you very much for your questions and for, let's say, confirmation of the fact that embodiment matters, and we need to understand how it works. School context. In fact, yes, we defined the criteria rather broadly, and we said that we are searching for adults who learned one of their languages in childhood, and it was on purpose. I did it on purpose. So what I imagine could be also a school context before puberty, let's say, before the teen age. And we have our reasons why the teen age is relevant for language learning or not, but I thought childhood maybe up until 11, 12 years of age. And it might be also a school context, but the criterion is that the language needs to be forgotten, no access, gone. So yes, school context is also fine. It will be probably one of the variables that we will need to observe. Mm-hmm. And that's probably it. So if nobody's got any other questions? No, okay.
So thank you very much, both people here and in the virtual audience. Thank you, Linda and Mark, for your very interesting presentation.